Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We are broadcasting from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is Friday. Thank you, Jesus. And I am so thrilled to have one of my absolute favorite analysts and commentators in this business, Daniel Horowitz. He is the host of the Conservative Review podcast. He is one of the most consistent defenders of the Constitution, of free markets, of conservatism. We have been collaborating for over 10 years and both very, very busy. Daniel, it's been way too long since we've had you in the studio. I know I can always depend on you to tell the truth about what is going on in the world today from a conservative perspective, as opposed to a political perspective, you know, with political candidates, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm always so thankful for you and appreciate you being here. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, it has been a long time. Kudos to you for getting me on.
I know.
I don't do this for too many people anymore with my ailing on and off voice, but thank God it's gotten a little better. So hopefully we could not overuse it and abuse it, but still tell the truth and please God's ears.
That's right. Well, Daniel, you look great and you sound great. And yes, I am a very, very persistent young woman. And I'm going to go out because I want the best, only the best for the Shannon Joy audience. I look for independent analysts in every category, whether it's the economy, the culture, the healthcare of the nation, medical industrial complex, politics, AI, technology, you name it. And Daniel, you're one of the very few commentators that can take a 40,000 foot vantage point view of everything, what's happening, within the judiciary, within politics, state and local and federal government, and all of these different topics. And so highly recommend Daniel's podcast. Airs every day on his network, The Blaze. And so let's get right into it, Daniel. We are 10 months in to the second round of the presidency of Donald Trump. I campaigned against Donald Trump. I believe that he is a liberal Democrat from New York City. I've always thought that. So there's nothing new there. But getting into discernible policy outcome in some of the areas that led to his reelection and the embracing of Trump's campaign by the medical freedom community and MAHA out of the ashes of the COVID lockdowns of 2020 and the medical tyranny of 2021 and 22. I'd love to get just your perspective on some key areas: medical freedom, the economy, and most importantly to this audience, the emergence of the technocracy or a technological surveillance state, which I'm very concerned about. So I'd love to just get your perspective first in terms of medical freedom. You wrote the book on the tyranny of the lockdowns. What are your thoughts in that area?
Look, I cannot look you in the eye and say we've had the reckoning and we're experiencing the reckoning, but I think there's some positive signs. Obviously, we are breaking through every year in more and more states, breaking the ice on this notion that's been in place for many decades that government has the right to mandate a product on your body, that vaccination is an exception to fundamental rights, individual liberties.
Right.
And we see it most obviously in Florida, where they're like, full stop, it's not just COVID. This entire, even though they have a generous religious exemption, but they want to go to the next step and say, look, there is no legal, moral, and scientific justification to ever say one person needs to get an affirmative product into their body in order to protect person B. And
Right.
that was the thesis we started out with. And I think I am seeing a lot of support for that. I'm seeing increasingly at the state legislative level, it hasn't percolated in Congress enough, but at the state level, we are making a lot of progress. And I think it's always slower than we'd like, but I do want to say it takes a few cycles, a few years, but we are getting there. We're also raising awareness, obviously, to the entire way we approach healthcare. Now, part of the problem we have that we've talked a lot about healthcare products and mandates throughout COVID and treatment protocols. We do have to get back to, and this is breaking federally now with the whole fight over subsidies. We do have to change the way we pay for healthcare, because basically what government does is it creates this cartel through Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare. We have socialized medicine, except that it's funneled through 3 to 4 insurance conglomerates, and that is what has created the lack of choice. So, what we really do need to push for is not just to not renew the Biden era subsidies that are insane, but to also repeal Obamacare and as much of that as possible, so we can finally go back to individuals choosing whatever plan they have. Because right now the problem is it's very hard to get healthcare you could afford because government foreclosed that. So it's a funding problem, but it is a medical freedom problem, because you're thrust into a system. A lot of people are like, oh, I'll go to my own. Well, good luck, because you need catastrophic insurance, and they made it that you can't get that on the cheap. So then you have to blow your wad on that, and then you have nothing left for direct primary care.
Right.
That is something we need to look at. Now, as far as RFK, I'm probably going to be a little bit more gentle on him than you, but I think I'm going to make a point you're going to agree with.
I want to talk about one of our amazing sponsors through Rumble, an amazing partner of the Shannon Joy Show, Perfect Sleep Max. Right now, you can get free bottles of Perfect Sleep Max by going to perfectorigins.com/SJS-PSM. Just for the Joy audience, they are giving away free bottles of Perfect Sleep Max for those of you who, like me, might have trouble sleeping at night, giving the chaos of everything that is going on in the world today. I know you guys have been there. Your mind is racing. You can't turn it off. You're laying awake. You have to get up early in the morning. You have things to do, but you cannot fall asleep. Enter Perfect Sleep Max from Perfect Origins. It's not just another melatonin pill. This one blends relaxation and sleep support from multiple angles with multiple great ingredients. This product is going to help you fall asleep. It's going to help you stay asleep. And I know a lot of us deal with waking up in the middle of the night, but when you wake up, it's going to help you feel refreshed and lively and vibrant. So if you're having trouble sleep, this is a great way to get a good night's sleep. It is Perfect Sleep Max from Perfect Origins. And right now, they are giving away free bottles of Perfect Sleep Max for the Joy audience. Go to www.perfectorigins.com/SJS-PSM. They're also giving 25% off if you want to purchase the product with that promo code JOY. So 25% off straight off the bat with the promo code JOY.
It's funny because you were a bigger fan of him back in the day. I was never into him. I'm still not.
Right.
I think he has made incremental change. I think he has done what he can do, albeit, the White House has pushed back against a lot. But what I would say is this. To the extent we have gotten change, which is undeniable that we have, it might be slow. Here's an important thing I want you and your audience to think about.
Okay.
That change only came about through a man running as a third party and being willing to blow up the joint, and Trump had to come to him, offer him the position. Now, we could debate over how much we've utilized it and whatever, but what I'm just saying is that model is important, because my whole life it's like, shut up, throw your panties at the Republican, whatever garbage they spit out and churn out. It's like, even if you ultimately want to decide that, 7-8 months after the primary, when election day comes, at least make them sweat for it. At least make them negotiate hard. The left constituencies do this all the time, by the way, and that's why they gain prominence. At least see when when you have a garbage Republican running in Texas, in Idaho, and whatever, we can be like, "Whoa, at least it's not a Democrat," but there's no end to it.
Right. The lesser of two evils ultimately ends in pure evil. And this is why, Daniel, you need to talk me off the cliff. Maybe you don't.
That only works one cycle, but you can't do that in perpetuity.
That's right. That's right. No, but to your point, I mean, what I'm hearing, and I will say, I will agree with you on the victory was getting Bobby Kennedy Jr. on the ticket and into the position at HHS in and of itself. That was the victory. From my perspective, though, that was the last victory because he necessarily had to make accommodations. There was a deal done with the devil because we know Donald Trump loves his vaccine. He's beholden to the pharmaceutical industry. We can see now with his inviting Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer. They're rolling out 500 new mRNA technologies. There is nothing done in terms of a reckoning. The vaccine injured are still sick, dying, ignored. No funding at NIH to fund the mechanism, to find the mechanism of harm from vaccines. We're getting some rhetorical air cover a little bit here and there, but when it comes to discernible policy outcome, I haven't seen anything. But see, I'm just a rip the Band-Aid off fast kind of gal. That's my thing. I just don't feel the need to belabor this and to wait. Bobby Kennedy Jr. did some great things. I agreed with him when he was fighting like hell against lockdowns and forced vaccination. When he joined the Trump administration and went into the belly of the beast, I just don't feel the necessity as a commentator, someone who is here to give information to people, independents, Republicans, and Democrats about what the hell is going on. I don't feel the necessity to kiss his ass or to kiss Trump's ass.
Sure.
I'm going to tell people what the hell is going on. And if Bobby Kennedy Jr. starts doing things that are great for medical freedom, I'm going to be the first to join the bandwagon again and say, hey, let's go. And that's the way I feel about Ron DeSantis. The reason I never really have much bad to say about Ron DeSantis is because he keeps doing things that are true and right, and they're not gaslighting me, which I can't stand.
And I think herein lies the difference. He is the chief executive of his state, whereas obviously, ultimately, Bobby is working for a man, and not just a man, but as we see and we'll talk about, because this does tie in with artificial general intelligence. Right. Because Larry Ellison himself says the number one example of AGI is, imagine all the mRNA and the cures that they're going to come out with. I actually think it took longer than I wanted, but he has gotten into vaccines to some extent. I think what's bothering you is that the balance of focus has been more about food, which is, whatever you think of it, there's more of a choice than you have with vaccines. Like with vaccines, I have this problem right now. I have a problem in private schools. Now, I know they're not government, but again, a lot of this is because of the way we have the childhood schedule. Like this affects our lives. You can't avoid it. I'm literally struggling with this now.
Me too.
Whereas with food, they really have choked off availability to an extent, but you can find options. And I also find what's a little bit funny, just news of the day. So, all right, we're getting into more, at least the health of products. Great. But then what's this business with government constantly partnering with these pharmaceutical companies for more weight loss drugs? I mean, that stuff is just nasty. There's no safe weight loss drug that you can do it in perpetuity without diet and exercise and whatever. So again, it's obviously muddled. Everything's going to be muddled around that man. But I think,
why not just call a spade a spade? Like, why are we doing this little dance? I know, there's this thing about political access. No one wants to piss off Trump. Everyone's afraid of him, all of the things. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting to the point where this elephant in the room is so freaking large. I don't know. The economy. I mean, here's another area.
Yeah. So
that is like the gaslighting is incredible.
So the economy, I think, is the most indefensible part of the administration because, and here's why. Trump and everyone on the right yelled for 3 years that we were in a silent depression, that the government data and the stock market did not reflect the balance of income and cost of living for 70% of the country, that we had a K-shaped economy where,
Right.
because of the fiscal and monetary manipulation, the endless debt, it created an asset bubble, wealth over income-based wealth, where we had this fake economy where it was built upon one or two industries, particularly big tech,
Yeah.
built upon not making too many tangible, useful products, but this sort of intangible service economy, and that it was benefiting a tiny concentrated share of the market. And particularly for young people, they had no economic future, because if you don't have an existing home and an existing stock market portfolio, so then you're lucky enough to get a job. And if you do, you're lucky enough if you can get income to break even, you're not going to have enough money to put into the market. The debt driven, and we are finally on the message that, look, it's not easy to cut spending. People don't want to, but the very programs you like is why you have an unaffordable life. And like I always say, the average person, family of four, if they were eligible, got about $10,000 in COVID stimulus. Wow, it's really generous. But since COVID, the average family of four has had to spend 80,000 more relative to 2021 baseline
Yes.
on their annual expenses, and that's going to grow every year for the rest of time, whereas the 10,000 was a 1 year, 1.5 years, whatever payment. So I think we had a perfect opportunity to come in with that message. He comes in and it's like Animal Farm is nothing anymore.
Right.
Uh, so it's like, I'm going to coddle big tech, the surveillance state, more than anyone. I'm going to unnaturally create favors for the wealthiest corporations more than anyone.
Mm.
We're going to fake to cut spending, but then but then ultimately the debt grows, and then we make our one bill about just a random assortment of tax provisions that nobody even knows how to articulate,
Right.
and that ultimately on net does add to the deficit.
Yes.
It partially repealed the Green New Deal, and that was only after Chip Roy and a couple guys screamed about it. So the whole thing was muddled. Then, to add insult to injury, is you could say, look, this has been going on for a long time. It's going to take a long time to get spending down. Give us some time. Biden did this. It's going to take me some time. Now, obviously, part of the problem is Trump really started that in 2020. So Trump is
Right.
stewing in the mess that he created his first term. So that's part of the problem. But look, I'm looking forward, not backwards. So I want the country to
I think we
succeed.
should look backwards. I'm like, this is so crazy, and it's only.
No, I understand, but he's there.
Yeah,
This is not the
right.
campaign, and I
Right.
I
I know
want
you do.
him to succeed in a way that America succeeds. Okay,
I
put
know
it that way.
that. You're
So,
so
like,
much
look,
nicer than me.
look,
So
but
much.
no, but just because we can't afford this. I mean, I can't afford living like this. So
I know.
the point is, so you could say that, blame it on Biden, whatever you want to do.
Sure.
But what you can't do is go in front of the American people and say everything Biden said. The stock market is great. The economy is great. We've never had a job market like this. Food prices are down. And everyone's like, I mean, this is right, left, or anyone. What supermarket are you shopping at? Like, tell us where the secret is. And this is
Right.
mentally ill. You can't say that. You could debate what the cause is and how to solve it, but you cannot tell people that prices are down. They're not.
Well, and the
So,
optics,
yeah.
though, Daniel, are terrible too. So when he's having these opulent parties down at Mar-a-Lago with all the scantily clad women and the debauchery and the excess, spending, $200 million on a 90,000 square foot ballroom, which we now know.
So we could host
is-
Zuckerberg and
That's
Oracle.
right, right. It's a pay to play operation. I mean, I said to my audience a few weeks ago, I'm like, listen, at least Hunter Biden and Joe Biden had the decency to hide what they were doing when they were doing pay to play and offering up favors. And, at least they went to Ukraine and laundered the money over there. Like what we're getting now is Donald Trump. They're doing it right in front of their faces. Barron Trump is making $1 million on a trade, insider trading, and everyone's just like, we see you. Like,
Yeah,
they're just
I think people recognize
horrible.
this, but everyone's scared to say the emperor is wearing no clothes. That it's like he didn't just cozy up to big tech. He created this tech bro, crypto bro, Arab bro alliance that
Right.
nobody has ever created to that extent. He said this was his response yesterday to the, after they got crushed in the election. So aside from saying the stock market's great and the food prices are down and everyone's laughing, he says, if you go a couple years out, you're going to see numbers like you've never seen before. We're building some of the biggest buildings ever built. And he said the AI buildings. I think he
AI
forgot the
building.
name data center. He calls
Oh,
them the AI
AI
build.
buildings.
Like, I
Right.
mean, and look, I gotta admit, he is funny sometimes. Like, there is something funny about being a crook out in the open. But like,
Sure.
after the
It,
laugh, at
it is.
some point it's like, don't we have to deal with these problems? It's like it's not funny anymore just because he's
No,
more
like,
open about it.
yeah, Mark Zuckerberg's AI data center, the size of Manhattan in my backyard, like cranking up my electricity bill and my water bill, like that's like so directly going to impact all of us. And to your point, Daniel, on the inflation in everything. I have three children, two that I'm going to be putting through college, one still in high school. Our expenses are up well over $1,500 per month for our family of five over 2020. And it's rising faster and faster and fast. Home prices, Daniel, I can't afford my own home. I couldn't afford the house that I live in today because the value has, and it is not because they're not making enough low income housing. It's because they're rigging the market. And these, like Larry Fink and Blackstone and BlackRock and all these people tied to Trump, are going in, they're buying up houses at four
And,
times
and-
the price.
yep.
It's like
And
so far.
this is the point that that Trump actually had the message to
Mm.
deliver, which was, look, the bottom line is for years we have created asset bubbles in housing, in healthcare,
Right.
and in the stock market. Now, we're not against the stock market, but the
No.
reality is in a free market, it's the S&P is not going to be doing 25% every year.
Right.
That's just not going to happen. And that was the message that needs to set. Look, the stock market is going to go down a little bit and housing prices are going to come down, but that is a good thing. But instead, we continuously pump in the FHFA is pumping in
Mm.
more of these affordable programs, which, as you well know, they're given to developers.
Yep.
To build more, create a bigger bubble. And the bottom line is at some point, you got to get the government intervention out. And that brings us to the data centers,
Mhm.
which, of course, is the biggest problem. I mean, I have to say, if you take the worst conspiracy about Agenda 2030, about transhumanism, and about biomedical tyranny and the surveillance state, I could not, I'll be honest with you. I did not see this coming. I could not have thought of something where we are going to give up our land. Remember, God is makes everything new, rejuvenates, adds to the world. The only thing that, for whatever reason, is not is land. Land is what you have.
Right.
Now, you can innovate what you do with it, but we have the land we have. To use land power to the level of every commercial establishment, industry, and household put together
Mhm.
and water and farmland and ranchland at a time where we actually need to promote more refarming to have more independent, healthy food in the country. Ranching, obviously, even Trump is talking about that, albeit in the wrong way.
Like always.
You know, that's what we should be focused on. Instead, we're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the wealthiest companies that themselves only have the stock valuations because of the debt driven spending and the artificially low interest rates and the quantitative easing for so many years.
Yep.
Then what we're going to do is give them in almost every state 30 to 50-year tax abatements. So if you're a rancher, everything you buy to utilize that land, every tractor, okay, everything you have to pay sales tax on, any purchase. Any purchase related to a data center is exempt. See, what that does is it creates an unnatural pull to something that wouldn't otherwise be viable. And we've
Exactly.
seen with Solyndra, we've seen with the EV nonsense, with solar, wind, and that stuff. And
That's right.
that if you create, and obviously, and COVID vaccines are another example.
Yep.
When you create something that is given immunity, which they're also working on, they want immunity from what AI chatbots do. It's immune from liability. It doesn't have to pay the same taxes. And then they're giving federal lands rather than giving it off for ranching and farming. They're giving federal lands, which I'm all for devolving. We need to, but only for AI data centers. And then they're suspending the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, chemical toxins. Now, I actually think a lot of this stuff we need to re-examine. I am not a regulation guy at all. But what you can't do is have everyone be regulated except that one industry.
Right.
Okay. So then we have all this. So then that created this unnatural business model where I could give you a million metrics, but let's just give you one. OpenAI has 4 billion in revenue so far this year with over $1 trillion in outstanding leveraged debt and commitments. So it's like something doesn't add up there.
Right. Keep going. Sorry.
No, something doesn't add up. And then obviously you have the circle jerk where each company pays each other to buy its own product. So you're not creating any new capital. Meta just did a 30 billion data center in Louisiana where red state Republicans exempted them from all taxes or most taxes. And they had to leverage private equity for that. So that's a classic debt.
Yeah.
They've found a way not to put the 30 billion in debt on their balance sheet. And your listeners have to know this. It's hilarious. It's almost prophetic. Nvidia, which is at the center of the circle jerk.
That's right.
I just found this out. I didn't realize they became admitted to the S&P 500 in 2001, replacing Enron. And that's literally what they're doing. And they're all, and so here's the thing. I remember, Trump got inaugurated and we were like, okay, what are we going to do on economy? What are we going to do on immigration? And the first thing we heard about was Stargate. And I was like, what the hell is that? Like, what? And we're gonna have a 500 billion investment in data centers. And he talked about zoning. I was like, wait, what? And then there was the Qatari money and the UAE and Saudi Arabia were involved. Like, okay, what's going on here? And I said, I thought we were cutting spending. Like, we have all this inflation. How do we have 500 billion? And everyone was like, no, you don't understand. It's all private. But then I said, well, wait a minute. If it's all private, then what are we announcing? What's the government thick as thieves in with it? It's kind of like if you remember when, I don't love digital technology and some of what it's done, and we all have issues, but it is what it is. You have iPhones were created. Mm-hmm. I don't believe anyone recalls the companies coming to the White House, I guess under George W. Bush back then, having a Manhattan Project to create it. It went on its own. I mean, right. There was no gaslighting of it.
There was natural consumer demand for it. People actually
when something is, I mean, there's problems with it, but when something is truly private and somewhat free market, well, what's government doing? I mean, so then if it's private, it's private. But what we understood was no, they were ensconcing AI into the fibers of our economy, society, and culture is too big to fail.
That's right.
And this was always my contention with all the special state and federal favors for it. I was like, and then when you have all this data that the economy is in a recession except for data centers. But here's the thing with AI. It's not output and productivity. It's GDP is measured by investment. It's all debt-driven investment. So it's not like we've gotten anything from it. And here's an important thing. I want to make a very important economic point on the AI stuff. So I am fundamentally not, in favor of one argument against it at its base level, except here. And that is that, it's going to destroy jobs. Because at a base level, as conservatives, we believe something that really is another industrial revolution, technological revolution, you might have certain sensitivities you have to deal with in certain professions temporarily, but over time, it's always been better. The problem with this is if it has been built upon such governmental monopolization of the public square and all sorts of favors
Yes.
that what it's done is it's unnaturally gained a foothold in a way that a free market would have vetted out the problems, but now we're stuck with the problem. So and when I'm talking about AI, I'm not talking about robotics. I'm talking about the data centers that suck up all the draconian stuff, destroy neighborhoods, power, all this stuff. It's for the least useful part of AI, which is what they're talking about is general AGI, artificial general intelligence, which means not that I program a welding machine to weld. It means I have chatbots to be like my oracle of you're my doctor, you're my lawyer, you're my accountant. So it creates a nice, neat structure that at the first time you're exposed to, it's like, oh, that looks kind of neat. But then if you're a smart person other than anyone who is like a high school or college kid that just doesn't know how to do prose and needs something to have some autistic prose for you with no creativity, it really doesn't do much for you, and it's making a lot of mistakes. So most companies now, 95% of companies, according to MIT, found, obviously, as you well know, it had no benefit, and a lot of them are moving away from it. So what it happened was because of the government gaslighting, they fired a number of people. Oh, it can do this because on the surface it looked like it could, but there's a lot of problems because most things in life are in the margins of that final 5% accuracy.
Right.
And this is my big concern now. I'm not saying we need to shut it down. I'm just saying no governmental favors. And one more thing, Shannon, this is the most important thing about the data centers. Too many people are mischaracterizing this as, oh, Daniel, you're like a California liberal who wants to put on onerous zoning regulations. But in fact, the opposite is. They are the ones unnaturally asking for rezoning variances that we don't give to anything else commensurate. So zoning is a complicated thing. It has to be local in nature. Okay, you cannot, and this is what's dangerous about HUD trying to push affordable housing zoning on localities and Department of Commerce and others trying to push with the AI action plan, and they tried to put it in the reconciliation bill to mandate that you have to give zoning to any data center, is that it's a delicate balance because you want productivity, you want growth, but it's got to be like, I can't open up a car mechanic shop on my residential block. That's not that infringes upon basic quality of life.
Yeah, I love zoning. Yeah, I don't want that shit in my backyard.
Yeah. It's a balance.
Yeah.
It's something that has to be decided by, based on the character of the area. It's to be very local in nature, and you got to preserve that. So, let's say, Shannon, I told you I had a technology that it's going to knock your socks off. I mean, it could do so many good things, and let's say it legitimately could. But here's the deal. It's going to suck up your land, water, power, destroy neighborhoods. So is that a viable technology, albeit it has a problem that we need to work on? No, that is not a viable technology. Right. So when you offer zoning, like look, for example, I'm a rural type of person, even though my primary residence is in a more city area. I love rural America. We need to preserve rural America. But at the same time, we need power plants. We need things that produce. And
right.
So it's a balance. You have to, in an equitable way, choose where you're going to put it. And, you can't have it nowhere. Okay. But power plants provide power.
Right.
This sucks it out on the promise that it will power computing for psychotic screen time. Now, look, we all said we agreed everyone on the right, there's too much transhumanism, too much screen time, too much algorithmic prostitution, too much algorithmic retardation.
Yeah.
And, there's so much bad. Now, it's hard to, what do you deal with the technology that's there? But if you're telling me, Daniel, you don't understand. Every query of ChatGPT uses X amount of, oh, so then we ought not do it then. So then, oh, whoops. Like, that's my point. If you find a way of doing it, then find a way. But we don't need to unnaturally destroy communities that we would never do for anything else commensurate, for your pile of crap.
Right. Well, and even more insidious than that. So there is the problem of the Manhattan-sized data centers, the fascistic nature of the public-private partnerships, the government getting in bed with these companies. From my perspective, what is most insidious about this is that I believe that the 21st century governments, okay, and will we have nation states? I don't know, right? If you look at what these technocrats and techno-fascists say about the 21st century, they erase borders, they erase sovereignty. There is no US versus China or Russia or Iran. There are no free markets.
And these are the same countries that are powering, the same companies powering China's surveillance state. And then they're like, we have to beat China while they're working with China. And then they're funded by Arab countries. It's like, well, who's going to have access to all that data?
But that's the point, is that from my perspective, the technocrats who purchased Donald Trump, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, David Sachs, you name it, okay, that what they see themselves, their technology, as the enforcement mechanism, the surveillance mechanism, the control mechanism that will drive the 21st century techno-feudalism, a new reality, a new market system, a new way for them to, essentially take over control of everything. And I think that's the bill of goods that they sold Donald Trump. I think that's what they're angling to do. The most insidious part of these Manhattan-sized data centers, which, by the way, in the big, beautiful bill, they have given, speaking of zoning boards, and you are right about localities and zoning. Well, in the big, beautiful bill, that these are anything AI related or in the expansion of the data infrastructure, they are prohibiting state and local jurisdiction, any type of pushback.
So that provision was taken out. We did raise Cain about that, just so you know.
Was it taken out?
It was taken out, but they're recommending it in their executive action plan. And also, what they did do is in the Green New Deal, the repeal, they kept any part like the battery farms that they're using with it. So that credit from the Biden deal remained. Yeah.
But in Daniel, what they can't do legislatively, they will do via executive order. They will do it by presidential memorandum. They'll do it via an emergency declaration, which is what they're using. I mean, they have come out and stated that they want to declare, Scott Bessent wants to declare a national emergency to address the economic issues. So you have the tech bros, you have the money people who have devalued our dollar, who have put us in the currency crisis that we are in with our dollar today over the past 50 years.
So now we're going to have a tokenized dollar.
So exactly. What concerns me is that Donald Trump is building an infrastructure that is so diabolical, so anti-American, so anti-America first, and even anti-human, right? That I don't even know that he necessarily knows what he's doing, but he's putting these people in control.
Yeah, but
Doge came in, mechanized everything. They want AI decision making, and these data centers are going to collect. Why do they need so many data centers? Because they want to collect so much surveillance on every human. Bobby Kennedy Jr. says in a testimony to Congress, he wants to see every single American on a wearable. What does that mean?
And this is the problem. And everyone who I know worked in quantum computing and things like this, those who actually are looking at mechanizing like redundant and dangerous tasks, which I'm all for.
Sure.
That does not take data centers. You could do that on a laptop.
Right.
Okay, so this is data centers is for one thing, and that's exactly the point. It's to gather copious amounts of information. The notion that you could just like stick Jello against the wall, just like
Right.
query everyone's life, and out will pop some amazing product. It doesn't work that way. The reason you would want to do that is because you're creating a surveillance state, and also there's another aspect to this. So everyone was wondering what's the next COVID. Now, we all understood that these players were at the center of all the problems. Okay.
Yes.
They were doing the censorship and everything. We take the very players and give them this playing field. And here's the thing about COVID was very difficult, and it was hard and it was almost impossible for a lot of people.
Yes, it was.
But technically, most people weren't physically forced to get the shot. It was almost for some people because you couldn't make a live. It was very hard. But follow my point here.
Yep.
What they're going to do here, which is a big problem, is something you can't escape. See, by their own admission, they're bragging about it. They're not hiding it. They're like, one data center is going to consume the amount of 1 million houses. The problem is if we're already at a point, if we didn't build a single new data center, because of years of Obama and Biden destroying the electric grid, destroying our energy production, we're way behind in our infrastructure just to keep up with the existing industrial and residential demand. We need a lot more. But certainly the fact that we've had a lot more data centers come on, a lot more about to come on. The problem is if the power ain't there, it ain't there. So, see, I could say, Shannon, you must do this. You must wear a mask. You must do this. And you could maybe choose not to listen. But if I just take the power away,
right,
and it's just not there, and that's not a lie. It's not like, oh, there's no power, so they're not lying. There won't be power because they're sucking it up.
They want that. I think they want economic. I think they want to crush the economy. They want us in blackouts and brownouts. They want to test the infrastructure and the systems because they want to put us in the same position that we were in lockdown. So desperate, so miserable, with such a horrifying prospect in front of us that we will do anything they tell us to get out of it, which I think what they're going to set up is the digital ID plus digital money. And once they set up us up on digital ID plus digital money, then they can turn the money off. They can corral us, control us, surveil us. They could say, listen, if you don't get your COVID vaccine and your records aren't up to date, your car is going to turn off. You won't be able to move out of a geographic area. And we're seeing this. And so what is below
and nobody cares. Nobody cares.
You care.
It's not just Trump. Almost every Republican. So I was telling
you, they're losing their minds. They're so busy Trump humping
that they didn't pass that provision yet. But most Republican states are giving them all the subsidies. And in West Virginia, they passed it statewide, meaning they passed it that no county could do anything that would prevent and I forgot the name of the bill, but it is such. I mean, these are all Trump voters and
all red states. I looked at the data. Yeah.
And they're getting crushed. Beautiful areas, by the way, and all under this lie of economic development and job growth. And it's like everyone agrees. Nobody could dispute this, that we are losing family farms and family ranches. We badly need. We're now importing more when we have enough theoretically to feed the world, but we have a monopolization of everything. What we need is more home ownership, more property ownership, more family ranches, more family farms, more small businesses. And this is why Governor DeSantis's fight, his moral fight to get rid of property taxes, at least on homesteads, is so important. But he's the only one doing that. He's the only one fighting the data centers and raising questions about the AI. I mean, Hawley's doing it a little bit, at least on the AI functionality, the chatbot stuff. But literally every other governor is both Democrat and Republican. They're inviting it. In Virginia, Republicans could have crushed that election had they run against data centers, but they support it. Governor Youngkin vetoed a bill that would have at least allowed localities to ask more questions, require more assessments. So this is the big problem, but the problem with Trump is that he, despite the rhetoric and the image that he tried to create, he doesn't see anything small business. He only sees big. That's the problem in his infantile way of thinking. He finds Nvidia and Microsoft and OpenAI, he finds that cool. He doesn't find family ranchers cool, which is why he's been jousting with them recently.
It's horrifying to me. And this is the problem. People accuse me of Trump derangement syndrome, Daniel. You probably know this. I have a bad rap in some MAGA circles because of what they call Trump derangement syndrome. But what you just described is exactly what I have been warning about for 10 years. You see, because people think mistakenly that Donald Trump is America first, because he says the things, he throws the red meat out there to the conservatives and the entirety of conservative media, because they either agree with it, they want access, they want money, or they're afraid. I don't know what the reasoning
Algorithmic prostitutes, that's all it is.
right? Like whatever their reasoning is, they are helping him lie to conservatives and to voters and to Republicans. And they're helping to whitewash his character in front of their audiences. And so people trust him. This is why I've always said I would much rather have a Biden administration or a Kamala administration, because then at least we would have a robust and awake movement of constitutionalists and conservatives, people who believe in free markets and our Constitution, fighting back against these things. What I'm seeing is Trump roll through
yeah,
with the approval of people who would never approve of this stuff. If Biden were doing it, this would never ever pass muster. If Biden
that you could say small businesses have to pay tariffs, but then if you're the Mag 7 companies and you do a press conference and Zuckerberg's like, hey, what was the number I should say? Oh, 500 billion investment.
Right.
I mean, and again, it's funny. It's so out in the open.
It's ridiculous. Think about this. We're all up in arms about Mom Donnie for giving free bus tickets. You know, he's the communist in New York City, and everyone is up in arms about Mom Donnie. No one has anything to say about, like, in your face socialism and quasi-fascism, with the merger, the full-scale merger right in front of our faces of big tech, big banks, big government at the federal level. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, right? As opposed to some, like podunk little mayor in New York City who probably doesn't have any power anyway. And he's horrible. I know he's a communist. We don't like him. But it's like...
Also an Islamist, but yeah.
It's Islam, yeah. But we're so off of the ball. And this is why I've always said Trump is the perfect Trojan horse, man. If you could groom the perfect candidate to be the Pied Piper who will lead an entire movement off a cliff into the abyss of collectivism, totalitarianism, statism, you name it. In this case, blatant banana republic cartel style pay to play insider trading and quasi-fascism, you couldn't create someone better than Donald Trump to do that. And this is what I get all this flack about saying these things. I'm just as conservative as you. I'm a hell of a lot more conservative than Trump. I believe in freedom. I believe in liberty. I just can't look out into the landscape and not acknowledge what is happening. And that's why, like, it really, even in COVID, like the mass formation psychosis, I mean, people putting filthy rags on their faces and on their kids' faces and injecting themselves with all these, everyone lost their minds. So, I feel like the mass formation around Trump is even more powerful than anything that we saw during the Biden administration.
So I'm glad you brought up mass formation, because I think this is maybe where we could land the plane in the future. Obviously, I agree with a lot of the problems with the president, and it's been 10 years already, and it's going to continue. But I will tell you, while people don't want to lose their algorithmic status on Twitter, they're seeing it, but
Yeah.
Trump is not the bigger problem at this point. He's actually one of the symptoms of the larger problem.
Yes.
The
Yes.
problem is social media, and I don't know what you do about it, but social media has broken the brains of the political right. And Trump could go away tomorrow and we will have, because we're having this problem independent of him now. You
Yeah.
talked about mass formation. So
Nick
what
Fuentes, we were talking about, we don't have to get into that, but like
yeah,
with new
but all this
Bizarro
just
happening.
weirdness.
Yeah.
So what happens is a lot of us were shocked during COVID. What we saw is that unnatural things that defy natural law, you could have instant following of it within just 72 hours. Like normally it takes a certain amount of time to change a society and get them to do like just illogical things. But the left used to control Twitter and they did during the outbreak of COVID and they used it for this mass formation. And what my concern is, since Elon bought it, and look, I was restored, you were restored, we were censored, so we're back. But since the right has taken it over now, they have their own mass formation where
Mm,
they focus on weirdness. There's this bizarre groupthink. There's this constant chasing of the algorithms rather than see before Twitter, if you're in politics, you had to be working towards something because there's no instantaneous like message that you put out. You're working towards a certain goal, a certain policy. Now, your brand, your subscribers, your podcast, and even your tweeting alone, a lot of them earn hundreds of thousands of dollars off of their Twitter account, which is amazing if you think about it. So everything they say winds up being whatever the algorithms are promoting. And this
rewarding.
actually ties back into AI. Ironically, the political right has become an AI chatbot. It's it's nothing but a broken algorithm that scrapes the crap of what's around on the internet, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, no one could disagree with this. It has been found that most of the chatbots, their information is the single biggest source is Reddit. And
Hmm.
then it's Yelp and Wikipedia and it's
Yeah.
like okay, I mean it's literally just scraping
The bottom of the barrel.
the bottom of the barrel. So now what happens is you have a lot of foreign bots as well.
Yeah.
Russia and China are trying to divide America's right and sow needless discord. So they churn out a critical mass of content.
Yep.
So what the algorithms in turn do is they're a reflection of the majority and preponderance of content. So let's say I just mention, I don't know, the word Jews or something. Well, the predominant thing about that online now will be very unflattering, needless to
Mhm.
say. So then it will churn it out. So then if you have a Twitter account, now we've come full circle where we're not talking about land use and medical freedom
Solutions.
and
Right.
anything and crime and quality of life
Good
and
things.
sovereignty, any of this stuff. What then happens is, wait a minute, if I do this, I get rewarded for that. See, if you have a little kid, every time he does something, he gets a lollipop, and he does something else, he gets smacked. Well, obviously that's going to steer him very quickly towards a certain direction. So this is how
So just so we can explain to the audience, every time Nick Fuentes bashes the Jews or goes, talks about how much he loves Stalin and Adolf Hitler, he gets rewarded with
yeah,
the algorithm and the money. And Tucker Carlson, by platforming insane people like Nick
yep.
Fuentes, gets the same benefit. Now, I think there's something a little more insidious there, Daniel. I do think that we're looking at very high level, very sophisticated propaganda. And I do believe that there are humans that they deploy, that they pay to become caricatures of the thing that they want. Like what happens with a person like Nick Fuentes, right? Basically, with everyone, like Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, warring with Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and the rhinos, and it's like this crazy fracas of all of them yelling at each other. But what do you get at the end of the day? You get anyone who has a real
The left
legitimate,
keeps marching the ball down the
yeah,
field.
that's number one. But also anyone who actually has very real legitimate criticisms of Israel and what may be happening, like that are valid. That you become a crazy person. You can't like you like automatically get lumped in with all of the anti-Jew people. This is where I go crazy because I think Netanyahu is terrible personally after what he did in COVID, you know, and I have my own ideas about all of that.
Yeah, but COVID has nothing to do with Islam, and
And
those are separate issues. But
right.
yeah,
And people can have a disagreement about what he's doing in Gaza, whatever. There are valid discussions you can have on something like that. But now I have to defend Nick Fuentes, right? Because
but it only
which I
rises
never
to a
will.
level of prominence. See, here's the thing: there's a million things going on
Tucker did that,
everywhere.
by the way. Tucker is helping Nick Fuentes launder his character, and he's grooming his audience to accept an insane person, not just on the Jew stuff, on
No,
women. He's a chauvinist. He's a 27-year-old virgin who is never going to get married. He's just a weirdo, a complete weirdo.
this is the problem. You have all this LARPing going on, and then meanwhile, everyone's like fighting, and so here. Let me leave you with a funny thought with the Virginia elections. So I've been warning all year that Virginia, the Democrats are going to slaughter, and I saw this coming.
Yeah.
And basically, you had this thought process on the right for about a year since last year's election that the left is in disarray and dead. And the reason they thought that was there's two factors. And what they were doing is projecting their own sophistry on the left that didn't wasn't true. So these guys, one reason was that, well, they don't have a central charismatic figure. And if you think about it, they haven't had one since Obama, and there's really none on the horizon. But what they don't realize is that what they do have is a professional political movement.
Right.
50 states,
Organizational
3,000 counties,
Yeah.
every issue you could imagine, they're on it. They might not be famous, but they're competent, they have money, they have organization, and they have a will, and they're doing their stuff.
Boom.
That's
Boom.
number one. And in fact, we choked on it because we put everything into one man for 10 years, even if he's a great man.
Right.
That we literally, again, I don't care what you think of, like, I don't care too much for the Virginia Republican Party, but if that's your thing, they had no ground. They had no presence. The legislative candidates were outspent 20-1. Like the Democrat challengers had exponentially more money than the Republican incumbents, which usually don't have that. So we spent, and by the way, I'm trying to figure out with the Arab bros, the tech bros, and the crypto bros, and Trump raising billions of dollars. How come the candidates are strapped for cash? That's kind of just something I think we need to think about. So that's one thing. The second factor of why they thought that Democrats were in disarray, is because they're like, I don't understand. I look around on Twitter. I look around on iTunes, and all I see are supposedly right-leaning, showbiz, and like the left doesn't have a Tucker, and they don't have a Joe Rogan, they don't have all this stuff. And it's like, you idiots. That's the point. Yeah. It's like you're sitting and flatulating and then getting drunk on each other's flatulence and then fighting on each other's flatulence. But meanwhile, there's two playing fields. There's the propagating playing field and there's the doing one. Right. And they're out there doing, and they're doing it under your banner with your guys. They're, right. I don't want to get crude here, but they're doing you in your own bed. Yeah. And it's like, oh, yeah, we don't like these globalist tech people. And then they come in under your own guy and they do it right there. That's because right. You're sitting busy with these fake, contrived, divisive podcast 15-year-old girl missives.
It's ridiculous. It's the level of discourse has devolved in conservative media. This is why, Daniel, I named it, I coined it Bizarro Con in 2000, and it started in 2021. I will also say to you though, the bots, the trolls, and the very sophisticated social media manipulation actually started the first time I ever noticed it within the Obama campaign, and then I noticed it in conservative circles in 2015 because I was
Yeah.
I was canceled, totally relentlessly attacked by bots and trolls because way back in 2015, I had the audacity to say the exact same things that I'm saying about Trump today, right? It got me canceled then. It gets me in trouble today. But so this has been layered and this has been going on. I would say to me, it looks like a systematic attack on the movement, the conservative movement, people who did have grassroots infrastructure for a time. And to your point, here in New York State, Daniel, you brilliantly explained, how important the organizational infrastructure is with the Democrat Party. I actually went to a No Kings political rally because it was right in my village. I just walked down the street. My neighbors were there. They're all a bunch of lefty libs. And I mean, it's, quite distasteful. But I went to the rally. They turned out, I mean, first of all, tens of millions of people across the country like that. And I'm thinking everyone on the right is saying, oh, it's astroturf. It isn't real. They're busing in protesters. It's all, it's all a bunch of astroturf. Yep. Daniel, I walked out of my front door and down the street. They had turned out 3,000 to 4,000 people in my tiny little village in New York State. And there was no astroturf whatsoever. And by the way, these people were flying American flags. They were quoting the Constitution. I know a lot of them were there for the wrong reasons, but they looked exactly like, I couldn't believe how organized they were. And these were people I recognized, all of them, like these were real people. And it was such a
I mean, Northern Virginia, you had precincts that had more than 100% of the presidential turnout, meaning more people turned out than in a presidential election. And this is the problem. Like, yeah, you don't really see them on too many podcasts. You don't see too much of that on Twitter. They have a few people, just enough to keep conservatives distracted, so they think that they're the big deal. But they have serious legal, like, there is not a single policy that they don't have the ability, the pre-written briefs, to put into court and get an injunction in 3 seconds. They have a legal team. They have a policy team. They have everything electoral you could imagine. And instead, we have a bunch of, here's the bottom line. The left invests in activists. The right invests in pundits and TikTokers. And you sow what you reap. And we invested a lot, and we have more TikTokers and personalities on the right than we've ever had.
Well, and they're devolving in intelligence and in
artificial intelligence.
I mean, they're not even good. I mean, we are now scraping the bottom of the barrel with Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is being groomed right now to replace.
He is everywhere. I don't follow him, but the content, the algorithm, like, I'm sick of these guys saying, like, yeah, we're against the system. Well, all I know is my show, and I say pretty edgy things too sometimes, but in a different way. That is not in anyone's thing, and everyone tells me they haven't seen me in years. Let me give you an anecdote. So, there was a guy that dabbles in some of this gaslighting with Jews and some of this sort of stuff. Doesn't have a lot of followers, like about what I have, a few 100,000. We're not talking about millions.
Mm-hmm.
And so normally when you get commented on or noticed or tweeted by a big person, millions of followers, so you'll see like a sea change in your mentions, like it'll kind of blow up, and you'll notice it. So all of a sudden, I think because he mentioned me or responded to something, and it blew up. I mean, it was so, you could tell there was so much intensity of content, but he was the same amount of followers as me. It wasn't, I was like, wow, okay,
you got the juice. Yeah.
And needless to say, a lot of stuff of people that, and you've never heard this all the time you and I have known each other. I've literally never talked about this. And I actually fought against anyone who asserted that it was prevalent in America. But I'm just telling you, these were people that want me in ovens.
I know.
I mean, it was pretty intense. But whatever, it is what it is. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. And I was thinking, so the Governor DeSantis of Florida often retweets me or comments on something when we're talking about AI or whatever. and he's the sitting governor of the third largest state, and he has 3 million followers.
Yeah.
And it's almost like nothing. It would be like as much as if you commented on me. No, literally, it's like you don't see anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, but he has exponentially more than
Right.
this other guy, and it tells me that the system, however these algorithms work, that now everything, it doesn't go based on what you follow. It goes based on, because you could follow what you want, but what you follow you don't see, and what you see you don't follow, and it's all shoved on you. This has The AI stuff has actually broken. It's made social media,
Yeah.
which was already bad, worse. And I don't know. I mean,
Well,
I don't know how we get people out of that social media mass psychosis formation, but it's a big problem.
no, it is. I think that those of us who are 100% certified organic human, who are not taking secret billionaire money on the side and money from foreign governments on the side to trick our audiences into supporting certain causes, which a lot of them do. We just need to keep plugging along, Daniel. And need to keep doing what you're doing. I have the feeling that in the same way that we are seeing this AI bubble about to burst, this is where I get optimistic. I see the culture pushing back. I see people understanding that there is not so much there and really angry about any type of potential bailout, to the
Yep.
extent
Yep.
that David Sachs came out today and basically said, "Oh, but there's going to be no bailout. No bailouts are going to happen." I'm like, "Oh, well, you're going to get government backed, taxpayer
Yeah.
funded,
I
loans."
would say the same thing if I
Yeah,
were him, because
right.
why say it now? The chaos that they've enmeshed into the economy, believe me, when that thing crashes,
It-
like everyone's a big hero now, no bailouts, but I'm
right.
telling you, they'll have the upper hand there. But on an optimistic note, I got to run after this. But on
Yes.
an
Yeah. We'll let
optimistic
you go.
note, I will tell you, it is one of the most promising things, one of the few promising things I've seen, that there is no organized known opponent on the left or right, big name, big organization fighting this stuff. So I decided to troll Grok one day just for the fun of it. Well, who are the prominent conservative voices fighting um, fighting data centers,
Yeah.
hyperscale data centers? And maybe it's changed because I ran it a few weeks ago, but then it was my name was the only one that came up.
Oh, wow.
And that was the funniest thing. But the reason I tell you that is because what we have seen is, without any leadership, any no name on left or right, we have now seen, kind of like Flight 93, the
Mhm.
first few, no one knew what was going on. So they were getting these things through. Now that people know about them, it's kind of like Flight 93, where, at least in some respect, I don't want to compare it to everything, but the point that people are now aware of what is going on.
Yep.
And now they're having more than 50% are getting blocked, where despite local officials, Republican and Democrat, signing NDAs and getting bought
Mhm.
off, the people come, and it's equally Republican, Democrat,
Yep.
Independent. It's just like people are coming together. That one thing is clear: they don't want their neighborhood destroyed by this nonsense.
Right. Right.
And I
No, you're
think
right.
that was the missed opportunity in Northern Virginia, where you could have peeled off a ton of voters, but neither party wanted to, because they're bought out. I've seen it in Delaware and Tucson. Those are blue areas. So it's not just some of the rural conservative areas. This is an important galvanizer of
Yeah.
land ownership, land usage, conservative rural America. We have nothing. We're controlled. We're crushed. We have no money, no power. The one thing we have that they don't, it's very important, is the one thing God doesn't create more of, and that is land. And that
Mhm.
is why we need to preserve that and make, because if you get rid of zoning, people need to understand you could have overzealous zoning in certain places, but you don't want to lose the prerogative, because that is the recipe for Blackstone and BlackRock and the big tech companies coming in, and then we lose it,
We
and then
lose
we're
that.
done. And the land ownership, and I think the property tax fight ties into that. That is one of the big catalyst that I think we could use to possibly spark a new grassroots movement.
No, I think you are absolutely right. And that's a great and optimistic place to end. And I will say this, this whole experience that I have had, starting a show, launching it 12 years ago, and really being kind of on the outs with conservative media for all of these years, right? Mainly because I did not kiss the Trump ring from the very beginning. So that closed pipelines, but it has forced me into a space where I do have to be creative about solutions. I do have to look at
Yes.
at
Yes.
at victories outside of the electoral system, outside of political parties, political idols, D's and R's versus left and right, and shuffling off to a voting booth every 2 years to vote for a lesser of two evils. Like
Yep.
that's been refining in a sense. And I'm not saying, and this is why I'm flirting with boycotting the 2028 election, which, people freak out about. But what I have learned is that the culture, and I learned it during COVID, there are synthetic operations that the left and the right governments will try to inject into a culture to get us to do things we would never normally naturally do, right? And those are always quite fragile. It takes a lot of money to engage in all of the propaganda and all the manipulation and all of the plans that they try to create to sneak us into the digital control grid and take away our liberties and crush our constitution and all of those things. Like that takes an enormous amount of time and money and control. But it's fragile. And if a small number, like cultural movements that are outside of that, that are just regular people waking up and saying, you know what? There aren't any clinical studies. I don't know what's in this vaccine. There's no way you can roll it out safely. And oh, by the way, this person told me and that person told me. And like this little tiny group of 20% of Americans or 25% who rejected the COVID shots, right? That was all that we needed to really absolutely crush the lock grip that the pharmaceutical corporations and that both parties had on the discussion about vaccines. And today, Daniel, we have record low rates of vaccine uptake for COVID mRNA shots, record low uptake of flu vaccines, regular adult vaccines. More and more Americans are opting out of the childhood vaccine schedule. Like the culture is now dictating to them. And I will say the culture moves before the courts and the courts move before the politicians. And so we've been fighting to get politicians to elect them, number one, and then get them to do what they say they're going to do. We get betrayed time and time again. And my big aha moment is wait a second, we need to be more engaged in moving the culture and not the whole culture. We don't need 90% or 80% or even 60 or 50 or 40%. All we need to convince is a small but dedicated group of people to say, oh, hell no to the digital ID. When they try to force us into the digital currency, we say no. When they try to put the data center in our backyard, we need enough small governments and zoning boards and people activated to drive out 10% of them. And when that happens, everything collapses. Like the narrative collapses. People realize their power and they understand that
it really does
within our four walls.
Because you can't get a bigger David versus Goliath than the Mag 7 companies backed by all the governments, coming in to relatively poor areas often and saying that, look, we're going to create the jobs, you buy off all the local officials. But there is one thing I kept telling people, and we learned this in Afghanistan. The Russians learned it, but then we unlearned it and then learned it again, which is that if the people there don't want you, unless you kill every person there, it's never going to work.
Right.
And if at a local level the people don't want something, sometimes we had local officials that were on our side, but then sometimes they weren't, but they had to relent. I mean, it's just so representative democracy is not perfect and it has its flaws, but let me tell you something. I think some of our colleagues haven't tried it yet. So a lot of them are LARPing. Oh, I guess we need fascism because democracy is not working. Well, If all you do is pass gas on Twitter all day, then maybe yeah. But I
Right.
mean, there's a lot because I was surprised. I'm telling you, there was no organized organization other than these Facebook groups would pop up in the communities. Save this area or this strong or whatever, and they had no budget. You're talking about. I'm talking about these campaigns. We had places in Georgia, four figure, $8,000. They had some T-shirts and signs, cheap signs, just to kind of galvanize people. But
Right.
ultimately, if you have a community and they all show up at the city council zoning board meeting,
And
it's hard.
bipartisan. Yeah, it's important to be bipartisan too, though. Like that's where I've seen the most power when
No, and
Democrats.
they are.
Yeah,
It's actually pretty evenly split.
interesting.
Um, it's evenly split. It's the all the people that aren't on the take, and this is the thing. Look, when it comes to quality of life, everyone needs it.
Hmm.
Certain things will divide people, but you have people far left, far right, in between, and you live in a certain neighborhood, and it's like, hey, we're gonna rezone it as data centers. I mean, whatever your opinion is on who's president starts to not matter. See, in the
Yeah,
abstract, when you poll people about the economy, it's a joke because when a Republican is president, so all the Republicans say it's great, the Democrats say not, and
yeah,
then it flips, even though the situation didn't flip,
exactly
and
the
that's
same.
how it is.
Right.
But in the concrete situation you're in your community, very few people are going to nihilistically sacrifice for their party, when their community is being destroyed, and they're going
Right.
to turn on that. So I think that's what I've seen with the data center fight, and I think we need to learn a lot
Love
from
it.
that.
I love it. And Daniel, I adore you. I am so thankful for your voice. And I thank you for donating your voice to me. I know that you did a lot of talking today, but this conversation is just so refreshing for me to hear. And I want you to keep up everything that you're doing. You have a huge audience in the Shannon Joy Show. They love you. You are like one of the favored guests. And so everyone gets super excited when you come on. So keep up that great work. Anything you need us to do, any help you need, I mean, anything you want the audience to do to follow you or sign up or subscribe, let us know so that you can promote whatever it is that you're working on right now.
Sure, no, I mean obviously it's just if you like my ranting, I do it every day. See our conservative review podcast wherever you hear it. I'm on Rumble as well, iTunes, wherever you find it. And I will just say, like, look in your local area. If make sure that you are aware of any data center being built within your region of the state and find a group that's opposing it. And again, this is kind of the closest thing to the Tea Party that I've seen,
Yeah.
that was not about a person. It was at least about a set of ideas, at least for a little bit of time. And we need to try to go back to that because no matter what, whether you love, hate, in between on Trump, he is waning no matter what. He's going to be a lame duck. And we got to make sure that vacuum is not filled by nonsense. And the important thing is, you know, a lot of us are very negative, and I'm guilty of it too. But to the point you mentioned, it's important, and I see it more now than ever. You can't be a source to disseminate disquiet without driving towards an affirmative direction. Because what I'm starting to see is you will have people that will latch on somewhat to our talking points, but when it's not done in a healthy way, it just it sows more discord and drives people into things that are unhelpful and
Mhm.
sometimes even worse
Right.
than what you're currently fighting.
Right.
So it's, Psalm 34, turn away from evil, but pursue good.
Right.
And it's that second half that we need to start getting better at, and certainly happy to work with you and your audience on this in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, we certainly do not want to become our enemies in order to defeat our enemies. We don't want to adopt the tactics of the people who are enemies of liberty. And so I agree with you 100%, Daniel. And yes, keep up that amazing work. And hopefully we'll be able to get you maybe, once a quarter, maybe after the first of the year. Take a nice
pray
break.
for my voice, and
I
hopefully
will.
we'll be better. But
No,
thank God it's gotten
absolutely.
better.
And here's the thing, I actually did a search about all of those data centers, and I would say that the vast majority, if not all of them, okay, but like over 90%, they're in red states. That's where these data centers
That's
are
where the
being
land
deployed.
is.
That's where the land is. But they also, they're unsuspecting because, Trump is in office. They think that everything's great and it's going to be phenomenal. Texas, I think, has the most. So that's the good news about that, though, is that, if more and more in red states, I mean, they would have the organizational infrastructure and the party infrastructure to stand up and speak out and push back against these. So that battle, I think, is going to happen in the red states, and will join you. You let us know when those battles are happening, Daniel, and I'll
Yep.
keep an eye out for them as well. And we'll try to get as much attention to what's going on as humanly possible, because we can win this battle. So thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.
God bless. See you later.
All right, and that